I want to pick up on the discussion we ended on because it was getting very excitable. So, Lynn, you were about to jump in. We were talking about economic development.
And when we talk about economic development, we often talk about kind of the normal things, job creation and asset growth. But I wanted to also bring up philanthropy, which is such an important part of economic development and altruism. Sometimes we don't think about those things. And I've been hearing it from Dawn and Gail and Yashoda, who I've worked with for so long. Their businesses are so altruistic. And when we give back in the way that Yashoda does, when she provides an education and pays for the education post-secondary of all of her employees who are seeking even law school, that is something that then grows the economy because of that generous spirit. And when our clients are able to give back to the extent that they do, to provide that hand up for other entrepreneurs, that is when we really see, I think, economic development at its best.
I think there's an economic development term I'm sure you're familiar with called multipliers. And they might say, oh, this company had this economic impact, and they're using some multiplier formula. That's a multiplier, right?
Definitely.
But we don't usually hear this discussion in economic development. I'd like to ask some of our leadership folks why. Why is this not talked about when we talk about economic development? We've learned here from these women.
A lot of times we spend a lot of our focus on the bigger corporations, the big box, instead of something the county's done over the years, which is one by one, one business by one business. And I think it becomes much more real. The multiplier factor becomes much more real when you're thinking about, the dry cleaner in your neighborhood who also buys from the restaurant across the street, who also, maybe trains another person who goes and opens another business. And the multiplier factor comes from the fact that when women go into business, they get to do what they love and love what they do every day, and they pass that on.
Well, there is also another new term that I hadn't heard before called she-economics, because on the flip side, this force is growing. I think we will be hearing more about it because women, 31% of new businesses are started by women nationwide, and in 90% of households, women control the money and write 80% of the checks and own houses jointly or separately at a rate of 87% in the country. So it is a very powerful economic force, women in and of themselves. And as many of you mentioned earlier, there have been studies that do show that investing in women and women-owned businesses really is a huge multiplier effect, and especially in the rural communities.
You started NewMexicoWomen.org, right?
Correct.
This is a new initiative
of the New Mexico Community Foundation.
Why did you want to start that?
We wanted to really help advance opportunities for women and girls in the state on a statewide level. We had already invested as an organization over $1 million in the last few years in nonprofits working to improve the lives for women and girls. And we wanted to bring more attention to the issues that impact women and girls in our state. We're actually working right now on an indicators report that will come out in the spring that looks at a woman's life from early childhood all the way up into our elderly women, and issues for women change over their lives. And so, some of our statistics are not very good. 25% of women are living in poverty. 1 in 3 of us will experience sexual violence against us in our lives.
That's a higher rate than the national.
It's a higher rate than the national. Women are still earning in New Mexico 77 cents on the dollar that men are earning. So there's a whole array of issues that we will be looking at and trying to either bring attention to, advocate for some changes, or invest in organizations that are addressing those issues. I do want to say that one of the very positive statistics for New Mexico has to do with our elected officials. And New Mexico is 14th in the nation for having women legislators. About 28% in the legislature are women now. And then 1 in 9 mayors in New Mexico are female. So I think women are well represented in New Mexico, and we can continue to grow that.
I don't want to disagree, but I think the number of women in the legislature has gone down significantly starting in the 2013, especially in the Senate. But she raises a very good point. To really have an impact on economic empowerment for women, we need 2 things. We need more men in this room telling how empowering a woman economically has affected their family. And 2, we need more women policymakers.
Maggie, that would be you.
And I was really really interested in a comment somebody made at the end of your discussion about why is entrepreneurship not recognized as legitimate economic development? And I think that's one thing, we at Bernalillo County, we tend to be under the radar, but we do a lot of interesting and creative things. And one of the things that we've done over the last 4 years is really recognize the power of entrepreneurship and small business development. And so we recognize that the traditional pattern of economic development, that is bringing in companies, bringing in jobs from elsewhere through incentives, is not the only way. There is still some value in that, given the right company. But we also recognize that we need to focus on our small local businesses. So we started a program called Increment of One, which is started by going out to small business in the community throughout Bernalillo County and saying, what do you need? What can Bernalillo County do for you to help you employ one more person, grow your business, hire 2 people? Because if you look at the combined impact of that, that's as good as bringing Lowe's here.
I think what I heard from women, tell me if I'm wrong, is that it's not that maybe entrepreneurship isn't seen as economic development, but there are these other issues that hold back women, often having to do with childcare or family leave, and those aren't often considered part of the economic development conversation.
I was inspired by what Dawn was talking about. We not only need to talk about financial literacy, but financial safety. That's a big stumbling block. If you have somebody in your household who is not responsible with money and is taking your money from you and not honoring your own goals.
Which that could happen even if you're not in a domestic violence situation.
Oh, no, anybody. Also, the firsthand experience with many of my students is they have someone in their household who has an untreated mental illness.
Some of the problems that we have seen, we went out and did community conversations. We went around the state to 7 different rural communities, and the issues we heard over and over again that were the biggest stumbling blocks for women were the child care and transportation. And they said, you can have all of the services in the world for us, but if we can't get to them, it's not going to help us. And so I think that there does have to be a concerted effort of cooperation and collaboration between what government can do and should do, and what nonprofits in the private sector can do and should do.
And I think you raise a good point. There are some things that only government can do, and I think one of those is transportation. And certainly Lieutenant Governor Diane Dennis in the previous administration deserves a lot of credit for the Rail Runner and the creation of regional transit districts that really have improved public transportation here. New Mexicans do spend a much higher percentage than the rest of the country on transportation costs. And with the Rail Runner now, any individual who wants a job has access to all the jobs along this corridor.
One of the biggest barriers, even before getting to childcare and transportation, is a belief in themselves. That self-confidence to say, like we've heard from these entrepreneurs here, I can take that next step. I can get the financing that I need. When Yashoda came 11 years ago and had never owned a business, yes, she was a CPA, but she'd never owned a restaurant business, and sought a $20,000 loan, when after doing the vetting and working with her, even though she had her business plan on a napkin, she rushed out the door to get to Accion because she heard we had some financing. That empowerment of us saying yes, that we can provide you that loan and we can help you realize that dream, is the kind of impetus that we need to provide women through education, that they see they can do it. They just need to seek those resources.
Yes, Diane.
Lynn raises a good point, and the ability to believe in yourself really starts really early. And part of it is how we educate women and what we expect, our expectations of them in the classroom. Several years ago, I was part of a program called An Income of Her Own, where we worked with middle school girls to teach them how to write a business plan, and everybody wanted to be in the beauty business, they all wanted to make everybody beautiful. But whatever it was, they worked in teams, they wrote business plans, they figured out how much it would cost. And one time I had the opportunity to go talk to a high school class, and it was a mixed class. The next time I went, I talked to just girls, and it was dramatic, the difference about how girls would interact and ask questions when they were just in a class of girls. Part of it's about teacher training and how we talk about girls being in non-traditional roles, being business people, engineers, in the construction business, whatever it is. But it's a very important ingredient in being able to be in charge of your own life, being the architect of your own future.
We need to go back and we really need to take it from step one. And really introduce the financial literacy. It was such a huge part of the things that held me back. One, inside the home, it's a very rare occasion that parents sit down with their children and discuss checking account, savings account, how to build your money so that you learn how to make wiser decisions. It's because once you start that thought process, you start applying it to every aspect of your life. And then we need to start tailoring it, because what happens is when you're so dependent on, financial assistance, you are so terrified. I cannot explain to you the feeling that you have of, okay, if I do go get this part-time job, then all of a sudden they're taking this much of my food stamps. How will I make it in this transition? And then we bring it to the fact when you bring children into it, you have to choose between being a mom and supporting your family when you're in a single home. And that's a heartbreaking decision, because one way or the other, you are going to lose and you are going to bear the impact of the decision that you've made. And we have to create these programs to support women in each set of these processes so that they feel confident, that they feel that they've got that net that's going to help them get from point A to point B and then move on from there.
See, it seems like things like
It's a
that get
lot.
put into sort of the human services arena rather than.
Right, but this whole issue of financial
Yeah.
literacy education.
Why is that not
Lieutenant
in
Governor
schools?
talks a lot, and rightfully so, about early childhood education. But the financial part of that education, I think, or the lack thereof, is really in large part so tied in to some of the economic challenges that women face, not only as they're a little girl growing up, but as they move into becoming a teenager and into adulthood. And I think we need a statewide initiative. It's got to be vibrant. It's got to resonate not only in our academic institutions. There's got to be, I think, leadership from the governor's office on down in terms of really trying to educate New Mexicans about the role of money and credit and how you can move through your life without getting in such a deep financial hole that you never climb out of it. Because when that happens, then the next generation repeats the sins of the mothers and fathers, and we have a vicious cycle that is not broken. So if we're talking about women's economic empowerment, financial literacy education has got to be a huge, huge part of that.
It's about a cultural shift of definitely having all of that education given, but also when it is especially for women, having not the backlash as well. Because very often when you have programs that are in middle schools that are specifically for young girls, we get very much, why are you leaving the boys out? Now you all are being sexist towards us, all of these different things that then make young girls feel like, well, now I feel bad because I actually got this opportunity, without understanding that they've been socialized into those barriers as well.
And I think it has to happen one by one, the way Maggie was talking about. Of course, those big programs that make a difference. But when I think of Beverly, and that when you talked about home ownership, that you said it was because your dad said, you have to own your own home,
Yeah.
not rent, you have to own. And I can see your children years from now saying, I'm in this house right now because
Yeah.
my mom, she
It was
sacrificed so much.
Homeowner and health insurance, you needed.
Right.
Health
And it's
insurance
that
is a
kind
big
of
one.
modeling of your mothers that makes
Yep.
a difference.
Gail?
When I'm college educated, I had a very successful career before my life fell apart, and I went through the financial literacy program when I was 46, and it blew me away for two reasons. One, because it's not that complicated. It's not. I mean, the way they're describing it, it sounds like it's a very involved curriculum and it's a lot of information. It's not a ton of stuff to learn. And it was so empowering to gain that information. It just opened so many doors.
The people who go through our financial capability classes say, why didn't somebody teach this to me before? and they also say, now I'm in charge of my money's not in charge of me. Now, one of the things is that if we talk about what the intention was set, you should have a home. That's a very important part also. But I say, you know, about low-income families, why would you talk about Disneyland when you can't take your kid there, right? Mm-hmm. So it's hard for low-income families to set intentions like that for their children. But knowing that setting the intention is so important, but also having the opportunity that goes with the intention. In the fall, we are launching child savings accounts. And we're going to launch them in 13 schools in the South Valley. Every kindergartner who enrolls is going to have a $500 savings account open as they enroll in kindergarten. And it's going to be matched and incentivized, and we're going to have a push strategy for financial education across a lifetime. So we're going to be working first with their families and then with their children. But the idea is now we have a reason to be talking about Disneyland. We have a reason to say, what are you going to be when you grow up? Because in low-income families, the future is, do we have enough for dinner, right? Yep. But having the financial education, having some financial assets, a savings account, and setting an intention, those three things are the three-legged stool of success.
It took years for me to finally find that I can succeed. And through the whole time I was asking every place that I call, can you direct me? You know, I need help to get through this little period in my life, and there was nothing out there.
My students are terrified of going off assistance. And of course I'm teaching them that, you know, you have to hold back. Tell them you have to hold 28% of your income back just to pay your self-employment taxes and your gross receipts tax. And that is so mind-boggling. So I think that the savings programs with matching funds really helps people overcome that issue. I mean, a lot of my students, their stumbling block is just bank fees are so high, they can't get a checking account. They have to pay 10% to cash a check.
If we're thinking about what we need to do now, legislatively or at the community level or at federal level, what would be the most helpful things?
It's creating a transitional program that says, yes, you've hit a hard, point in your life, but we believe in you and we believe that you can be a part of this community.
Is that something that Bernalillo County can work on? It's kind of a larger federal issue.
I think it's got to be a partnership. I think that Bernalillo County could be a part of it. I think the state has to be a part. I think local, federal, and even a private partnership. I think those public-private partnerships work. I think it's certainly worth doing because I think we all recognize that it's like walking off a cliff. Mm-hmm. And when you're not on public assistance, making up or paying for those costs is probably out of reach for most people, especially if there's not a high-wage job waiting or a very successful small business. And so I think it's something that is certainly worth exploring.
One of the very best examples of all those wraparound kind of things is at CNM, with the Family Resource Center, which has the opportunity for people to come back to school if they need help with financial assistance to go to school. But then they also point them to the resources for child care assistance, for job training, for the health care, for all the kinds of things that create what I call the economic safety net for single people, their families of all ages.
There's this constellation of things that are required to help women become independent, and those don't always get included in economic development discussions. It's like childcare.
I think one of the most stunning figures in New Mexico is the fact that quality childcare for one child in New Mexico costs more than going to the university. For one child, it's about a $2,000 differential. It's the single biggest impediment to women being able to go to work and being able to even be their own bosses.
Jenny, the report that you're going to be coming out with has some kind of legislative priorities attached, or policy priorities, I should say. Are these things part of it?
Yeah, we're in the process of finishing those and making recommendations. But, one of the things that you all have just now been talking about, it's really a paradigm shift because all these things are specific to women primarily because women are child bearers, and we will always be the child bearers. And so our economics model isn't really designed for women working and being mothers. And so I do think that looking at it a little bit differently and allowing that kind of flexibility for women in the workplace makes common sense for our whole society, because it impacts our children, it impacts our families, and it impacts our communities. And people like Southwest Creations that are doing it, everyone's kind of like, wow, you guys are doing this really cool thing. And it is really cool, but it should be more of the norm, I guess.
What kind of impact has it had on your workers, Susan, who were low-income women, primarily Spanish-speaking, raising their families? You've invested in them, and what impact has that had on their kids?
Well, I think this whole university program of what we're trying to do to get kids to go to college is really indicative of us starting with the daycare. 95% of the children that are of the employees of Southwest Creations graduate from high school. And of those, 85% are going on to college. Wow. And that's because what Ona was saying about the early child, at 3 they have to go to Head Start. It's not it's not even an option, because it is this is beautiful babysitting, but it's not the development that your child needs to go to school, and not being able to lose so much of your paycheck to be able to have your job there. So I think what it does is it just creates this opportunity for us to really go from like the early childhood development to going on to college, and to see what engagement mothers and families need to make in their kids' lives and in their own work to make that go all the way through. And it's not that hard to do what we do. I have to tell you, I mean, it's not, we run an on-site daycare that it's our children at our site. We don't have to have super special licensing. Our insurance every year is about $900. We pay a child care provider and train her. And I mean, I just don't get why people think it's such a horribly hard thing to do, because it's just not. I mean, we've been doing it pretty trouble-free for 19 years. So I just encourage people not to think that it's such a huge barrier to entry to do an on-site daycare for the workers.
I think a lot of times the way that we perceive, especially single mothers who are on financial assistance, is that we're taking from the systems. And I think it's more about looking at them and saying, let's invest in this person. Because certain programs took an investment in me, there was never a point in time that I did not want to be a part of paying my taxes, of paying for my own health insurance for myself, for my children, for my business partner and his family. I have started 3 nonprofits that are going back into my community to help them with the things that I saw as barriers. And exhausting, yes, but hard, not so hard.
When we say economic development, what registers in my mind is that's going to cost money. If we change the term to community development, then we're catching these people that are slipping through the cracks, or there's a hole in the net, and kind of bringing them back into the community with the assumption that they want to contribute to the community in the future.
The community wants to invest in you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm going to give you the last word. Thank you all very much for coming and having a great discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.